topics, these discussions about water quality have been extremely important within the state community. They bring that with them when they come to campus. So this is the backdrop against which we as a university, a small city in ourselves, we operate. Stormwater management is not new to us, but it's not an individual effort. It involves a lot of different agencies and groups here on campus. We have, one of our permit requirements is to maintain a stormwater management committee. That includes primarily facilities planning and management and environmental health and safety. But we also get students and faculty involved in those meetings. We're required by permit to meet 3 times a year, once in each semester and then once during the summer break. So we do that often. We invite student groups to sit in on those meetings to get an idea of what the management of this stormwater program looks like. My faculty colleagues, Mike Perez, you just heard from him. Some of his interests, some of his students in particular have gotten involved in some of our campus stormwater management programs. Another faculty member, Hannah Carroll, is herself a doctoral student, but she also teaches into one of the ecology classes on campus. Her students are extremely involved in this, as well as some of the other clubs on campus. We're also partners with the Iowa Stormwater Education Program and the Iowa Water Center and the Water Resources Research Institute are also campus players to varying and to greater or lesser degrees. So this is the team that helps manage stormwater on campus, or at least have input into the process. As I mentioned, one of our more valuable products here is students. We hire many students in our various departments, our administrative departments on campus. The Environmental Health and Safety Department is no different. This past summer, one of those students in particular caught my attention. He was hired before he started his freshman year as an engineering student. So he came to us during the summer for summer employment. He started out working in the fire safety group. We check every fire extinguisher on campus on a regular basis. He was hired by the fire safety group to check fire extinguishers. The supervisor in that particular program came to me a little sheepish one day and said, "We've given him everything we had for him to check, and he was a little bit too efficient, and now he's bored." Well, as most of you know, intelligent, bored students can get into trouble. So we quickly employed him. I said, "I have just the thing for him." I gave him a map of campus, an impact drill and a masonry bit and a box full of steel stormwater markers, and he covered 28 miles of campus roads in 3 days. Came to me after installing the first box and needed 4 more, and put 100 of these stormwater markers all over campus. These are the storm drains that the newer models are actually cast with the no dumping drains to stream. A lot of our features, a lot of our installations are the older design, so we put these medallions, we rivet them, drill a hole in the concrete, and place them at each of the storm drain markers. So Matt was occupied for only 3 days. After that, it was a new month, and we gave him back to the fire safety group, but we're going to hang on to him, and he promises to be a huge motivating force in the engineering department as well. So look forward to following his career. As I mentioned, stormwater management is not new. We have been at this for quite some time. Our facilities planning and management department maintains a map of more than 40 different features on campus that all involve stormwater management features. A lot of them range in small scale, large scale, small scale being those, even something as simple as a medallion that advertises to the community there is no treatment between this drain and the stream. So even that awareness is a very important part of our stormwater management program. When students who come to campus see this, it gives them an idea that this is not new, and there are a lot of things that they can get involved with during the process. I mentioned Matt's involvement. One of the student groups, the Students Engineers for a Sustainable World, wanted to participate in an EPA program called the Rainworks Challenge. This group is mentored by Mike Perez, whom you heard earlier. They came with a proposal to take a map of campus, identify a feature that would benefit from a lot of high visibility or high impact stormwater management features. So Cyclone fans, what is the most prominent feature on Iowa State campus during football season? Jack Trice Stadium, exactly. So they took a map of Jack Trice Stadium, the stadium here, some of the other athletic complexes, Hilton Coliseum, and they looked at that, they walked the terrain, they did a lot of thinking about where would we put stormwater features at this installation. It's a perfect location. It is, if you're coming in off of Interstate 30, it's the gateway to Ames. So it is a very prominent entry point from the highway into Ames. So it would be a very high visibility, high impact area, communicate not only that this is a beautiful place. Peter talked yesterday about where's the fun, where's the beauty, and this would be an excellent place to feature some of those beautiful and functional stormwater features. So they took this map, they identified on their map several different locations where these various features would be installed. This was their submission to the EPA Rainworks Challenge. Look forward to hearing about their success in that competition. But then they did something else. They contacted us at Facilities and Environmental Health and Safety and said, we had so much fun doing this, we have so many more ideas, we don't want to see all of this energy just dissipate and die. Where can we put some of these in? We'd like to actually see these put into place. So we brought together some of the other experts and talked them through the process of what does construction look like. And when your facility, when your construction site is nearing closure, you've got the soil stabilized, all of the beautiful improvements are in place, all of your stormwater features are being covered over. We're about to close out that MS4 permit. That's really not a good time to do a change order and make a bunch of modifications to something that was approved months or even years ago. So we talked to them about the planning process and the contracting process and how long it takes to get an idea funded and on paper and approved and constructed. A much better place to put those ideas is at the front end before it gets sent out for bid. So we talked to them a little bit, educated them on the contracting process, identified a couple of features that were in the process of being devised, designed, and approved. That might be a really good place to insert some of these ideas. Now comes the hard part, the funding. Who pays for these features? We heard yesterday that baseline function works, but it's not what we aspire to. We aspire to the beauty and the fun and the creativity, and we can do that simultaneously. The front end of these projects is a really good time to do that. So they have been looking at the planned construction projects that are coming up and to see where can they put some of these ideas into place at the front end, and where does that funding come from? Where does that money come that can add some of these features? A couple other students were interested in going into a little bit more depth and looking at specific areas where they could do some research. Well, as I mentioned, we have some permeable pavements in some of these green infrastructure, these stormwater management infrastructure already on campus. Some of these were installed about 12 years ago, one of which was outside the Environmental Health and Safety building, which was built about 12 years ago. We did a lot of research up front. The engineering department sent students. A faculty member was very involved in investigating and testing and measuring the percolation rates in those permeable pavements. We have all of those drawings and blueprints from that original construction. We don't know what happened in the 10 or so years since that initial research effort ended. So how do these infrastructure features change over time. What is the lifespan of a permeable pavement? We don't know this, so this is an extremely important piece of feedback. We put all these features in, and we don't have a really good idea of which ones work over the long haul and which ones we should abandon, which ones we can modify, which ones there is new technology and new ideas. So some of these research programs by the students, some of this research effort by the students is a really neat way for us to get data later on after the installation. In fact, that's one of the things that our most recent courtesy inspection by the DNR pointed out to us. We invited them onto campus, showed them all of our active construction sites. One of the things that they pointed out, Joe Griffin in particular, said, "You're really good at installing these. What's the long-term implication? How do you measure whether these were successful or not?" I made the bold promise that, well, we are Iowa State University, we'll figure it out, we'll publish it, and we'll share it. And then Mike Perez showed up. So really neat timing how we have some students now who are interested in some of these follow-on studies. So neat opportunity to see where this goes. The biology department is also very involved in water quality here on campus. Hannah Carroll teaches into one of the biology classes on ecology. Her students go out on a regular basis and they collect samples from the streams. They do water quality testing with some of the rapid assessment test kits. Once a semester, they present their results at a poster session, which several of us attend. We ask them questions. It's delightful to see them light up when they realize the connection between a rainfall event and something they measure in the creek. So really neat to see that educational process, the excitement that they have when they finally make a connection for something that I admit sometimes I forget how exciting that connection is between the stream quality and the rainfall event and the parameters I'm measuring with a dipstick and a test kit. So really neat opportunity to see that education and process. These students had been part of the Iowa Water Volunteer Water Monitoring Network. They are now participating in the evolution of that particular program, the Iowa Volunteer Program. They're still collecting numbers, they're still collecting data and assembling stream data on these various sites. And they have been collecting, these are the volunteer water monitoring sites in Iowa, in the state, across the entire state. Several of them are very important to campus. And in particular, the sites that these students chose represent before and after snapshots of the 3 streams that intersect with campus. So what happens to the stream water as it enters campus, interacts with the campus community, and then leaves campus? Now we have before and after time snapshots of what's happening to the water chemistry as it moves through campus. We didn't think we were doing any harm to the stream. Now we have data that shows the water is just as clean on its way out as it was when it got here. So we are doing no harm, we are leaving no trace, and that is a huge good news story for us. These students made that possible through their sampling efforts. So really neat opportunity to show the 3 different streams are not affected by the campus community activities. And we have really neat opportunity to demonstrate that, to celebrate that, and now we have the numbers to show for it. They collect a number of stream parameters, basic stream health, vertebrate and invertebrate species distribution in some of these streams, in addition to the basic water chemistry. They are looking at just some basic numbers. These are preliminary data that they have collected that shows over the 10, in some cases 15-year time frame for some of the monitoring efforts. Each group of students comes along and adds a little bit of knowledge to that base. That's a really neat legacy that all of those students who came before them are contributing to this brand new crop of students. So we talk about their data, we go to their poster sessions and interact with them and share their excitement and talk to them about rain events and soil erosion from the stream banks and planting willow saplings to mitigate some of the erosion. And how would you go about identifying the source of this chloride, and to see the students make the connection between salt on the roads in the winter for ice and safety mitigation and the chloride levels they see in the streams. So neat opportunity to participate in their education and get them involved in something that we do on a daily basis, on a regular basis here on campus. And neat opportunity. Another part of our requirement is we have to maintain a 24-hour tip line for stormwater events. We advertise this in the school newspaper. It circulates. Remember those students who were out sampling in the creek on either an afternoon, in some cases a Saturday morning, because that's when they were getting their homework done? We got a phone call from one of the students in class saying there is a milky white substance coming out of a pipe and draining straight into College Creek on campus. We said, that's interesting. I don't think that's supposed to be that way. So we notified our colleagues at the DNR that we had an illicit discharge and that we were going to investigate and keep them apprised of our investigation. It was coming from a building on campus, the old Memorial Union building. That turned out to be a bit of a challenge. Memorial Union is about 80 years old. The original blueprints were drawn by hand. There have been at least 7 or 8 major renovations since that time, so layer upon layer upon layer of blueprints and drawings. And we were trying to find a drain. So this got the engineering department at facilities mobilized. They started trying to overlay all of those drawings for the drainage system and the plumbing system in Memorial Union. After a couple weeks of effort on their part, they finally traced it back. That pipe that was discharging white milky liquid into College Creek was traced all the way back to a floor drain in an old forgotten custodial closet that went straight to the creek and not to the sanitary sewer. I don't think that's supposed to be that way. So we plugged the drain, we solved the problem, we congratulated ourselves for a problem solved, we reported back to the DNR, we're good, and we had forgotten something. Remember those students who told us about the problem? They didn't know the end of the story. So we gathered the students back together and told them the same story. We walked them through the process, we told them what we found, we showed them the blueprints, we showed them the concrete patch we put in the floor to close off that floor drain. We're going to modify those the next time that particular building gets modified, those drains will be tied into the sanitary sewer. We closed the loop for them and told them the rest of the story. And the interesting thing about that, this exciting thing about that, is we communicated back to them that that phone call mattered. It mobilized an entire team of professionals at Iowa State University who spent several work hours trying to track down that particular problem. So now that communicated to the students, they matter, their ideas matter, and their reports mattered to us, and we took it seriously. So neat opportunity to see the excitement that generated. Now they're even more excited to take that empowerment, that success story back out into their community. I know that in at least one case, one of the students is going back to her community as a local ambassador for water quality. She has started her own water quality monitoring effort in her hometown and is continuing to add to this knowledge base in one of the watersheds in her hometown. So neat connections that this requirement at Iowa State has also created opportunities for our students. A lot of these students are engineering students, they're biology students. We like to show them what right looks like. So we have dressed up entire classes of, in one case, biology students, in another case, engineering students. We dressed them up in hard hats and reflective vests, and we took them on a tour of one of our active construction sites. This one happens to be Joffrey Hall, one of the new dorms on campus. They could see the stormwater detention cells as they were being installed. We have aerial cameras that monitor in an accelerated time scale the development of that site and the construction. But at that point in time, we were able to walk them around to the storm inlet protection, the straw wattles, the silt fences, the detention cells. We took them into the contractor trailer, and they could see that the SWIP, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, was actually hanging on the wall and had pen and ink changes to it, showing that it's a working document. And this particular contractor takes that responsibility seriously. Really neat opportunity to show them what right looks like. Now that goes back into their folder of educational experiences, and they see that these things they're learning in the classroom have a real-world application out in the professional world. So neat opportunity to make that connection for them. We invited Director of the DNR, Chuck Gipp, to campus. We gave him a quick tour of some of the stormwater management features on campus, but then we took him to meet the students. So he wandered around in the creek, got his shoes muddy, his socks wet, because his interest was talking to those students, that next generation of water professionals. So he canceled one of his administration meetings so that he could spend more time with the students. He talked to them about how he got involved in this particular profession, how he never anticipated that 20, 30, 40 years later he would be the director of the DNR and overseeing some of these stewardship and resource management issues for the state. So a neat opportunity for him to spend time with the students. They could interact with him on a one-on-one basis. And he showed an interest in what they were doing and what they were learning here on campus. So at least 3 generations of water professionals right here in this photograph. Chuck Gipp, instructor Hannah Carroll, and the next generation of water professionals from Iowa State attending one of their ecology classes on stream water quality management. I'll pause for questions. I've got 3 more. Yes, ma'am. I do. No. But we showed them what right looks like, and that was very important. So I won't single anyone out for accolades, but yes, that was an important part of that process. The question was, which contractor was it? I'm reluctant to share that, but we showed the students what right looks like. And they were doing an excellent job, this particular contractor. We have numerous contractors on campus, and all of them, as a general rule, are extremely conscientious about implementing the regulatory requirements. It's not just what do I have to do to get by. They actually take their profession, their responsibilities very seriously. Another metric that we collect is we run a street sweeper on our streets, and that's another interesting part of our annual report back to the state. What are we doing with all these street sweepings? We use a lot of sand on the roads in the wintertime. We do a lot of street sweepings. We collect up all of these street sweepings, we filter it, and we reuse all of that sand and grit for other small projects on campus. So a great way to recycle that sand and grit that we've put down for snow and ice control, and we send it back to some of those small projects after we've filtered out the trash and debris.
I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you filter out the trash and debris?
Sift it through a grizzly type riddler to remove the sand.
Any other kind of remediation, if there was like a lot of salt in that sand or something like that kind of neutralize it?
Good question. Generally, by the time the rainfall event or the snowfall event has passed, the salt has all dissolved, so there isn't a lot of salt in the debris. It's predominantly sand that we're collecting, but we may not apply it to vegetated areas in case the chloride content would affect the vegetation. So parking lots and other types of non-landscaping areas, sub-base. We do. I think last year it was 43 tons of material we sifted out from this particular truck. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to ask if you equated the amount of sediments or sweepings that you collect and looking at, for example, phosphorus removal.
The question was, do we look at phosphorus removal in these street sweepings? We don't look at specific components in the street sweepings. Our focus is to keep them out of the gutters and out of the stream. So we're going to use them in places where they're not going to be exposed to runoff into some of these vegetated areas because the potential chloride, the salt content may affect vegetation. We don't want to change the habitat for the plants that were put there without expecting it to be high saline content. We've found on campus that a lot of our sidewalks, after a rainfall event, the water runs off the edge of the sidewalk and starts to erode the curbs. And we were getting a lot of sediment in the streets from sidewalk runoff. So several of the members and facilities got together and decided that they would put in what they decided to call a Watson gutter. It's simply an extra strip of concrete along the sides of some of our longer paved sidewalks, and it tilts the edges up. So instead of sheet flow off the edge of the sidewalk, it keeps that water channeled onto the sidewalk where it flows out into the street, and the infrastructure is better able to manage that, and we're not seeing the erosion of the sidewalks and the undercutting and the replacing of those sidewalk sections because of undercutting. So interesting, creative solution to a problem we were seeing on campus. And then one last story in my last few minutes. We had a challenge on campus. We have a lot of concrete cutting, and the dust and sediment, silt that concrete cutting generates is concrete dust. We don't want that running into the stormwater system. In fact, the DNR challenged us to find a solution because it's a statewide problem. So we got together with one of our contractors who said they would be willing to test some products. We found one particular product that's a highly absorbent gel polyacrylamide from the same type of material you fill diapers and other highly absorbent materials with. It comes in a powder in a bucket. They created some terrain lines around their cutting area, and as the water from the water-cooled saw, as that wash water, which is laden with a lot of concrete dust, hits these powder lines, the gel absorbs the liquid. All it takes is a broom to push it around a little bit, and you shovel it up with a shovel, and it goes in your concrete washout dumpster. So a really neat solution to a problem. We shared that with the community, put it in our annual stormwater report, talked about it at one of the stakeholder meetings when the state assembled all of the MS4 permit holders. That was one of the potential solutions we share with our community. We found a solution. This works pretty well. Maybe it'll work for your application. So I am out of time. I think we have a break coming up. I'll stick around for additional questions, but thank you very much for your attention.